Today, we've got some really interesting source material. It looks like excerpts from maybe a lesson or a podcast about American English idioms.
Right, those everyday phrases that pop up all the time.
Exactly. And our goal here is to, unpack some of the common ones, help you understand conversations a bit more easily, maybe even sound a little more natural yourself.
Yeah, because idioms often don't mean what the words themselves suggest, do they?
Not at all. That's the tricky part. So we'll go through the examples we found in this source, look at the context, and really break down the meaning.
Sounds good. This material gives us some great real-world examples to work with. Let's get into it.
Okay. First up, a really strong one about trust and support. Have someone's back. The source had this story about a guy named Jake at an old job.
Oh, right. His friend was struggling with a presentation. Work was tough.
Yeah, and Jake, he stayed up till 2 a.m. helping him fix it. His friend was like, I don't know what I'd do without you.
That story nails it, doesn't it? Having someone's back means you support them, you defend them, especially when they're in trouble.
It's that feeling of knowing someone's on your side. You feel safe, they'll back you up no matter what.
And the detail in the source was important too. Jake showing up without asking and not making the friend feel like they owe him anything. It suggests that real support is often an unconditional, just being there.
Yeah, it really captures that loyalty. It makes you think of, like, family. The source even mentioned your big brother's always got your back, too.
The original hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a phrase packed with that kind of reliable, steadfast support.
Okay, let's shift gears. Completely different vibe here. Spill the tea. This sounds pretty modern, right?
Oh, yeah. Very current. The source gave us that example about Ben's party.
Right. The party that was apparently total chaos, lots of drama.
Uh-huh. The specific tea being spilled was about Lisa showing up with Max, even though she'd said she was sick, and then they got into a fight.
Juicy. So spill the tea, it basically means share gossip, right? Especially the exciting, maybe slightly scandalous kind.
Exactly. And the reaction in the source was interesting, too. Someone was living for it, loved the chaos, just there for the smacks and gossip.
Huh. Yeah, it shows how the phrase is often used pretty lightheartedly, even if the subject matter is dramatic.
And that line, nothing beats live tea.
Loved that.
Meaning seeing the drama happen in real time is even better. It really catches the energy around gossip.
Okay, next one. This can definitely trip people up if they take it literally. Save up some dough. The source had a scene with a tired parent and energetic kids.
Mm-hmm. The parent says they're just trying to save up some dough for a vacation after all this.
And the kid perfectly asks, why do you need bread for vacation, Mom?
Classic. It sets it up perfectly. Because dough, in this context, just means money.
Right. You're saving money for something specific, like that vacation.
It's one of those, like the source said, silly things in English. They even joked about getting paid in actual bread or pizza.
Yeah, that contrast makes it stick, doesn't it? Dough equals money.
Definitely.
All right, sticking with things that can be hard to figure out. Wrap my head around. This came up with someone trying to understand quantum entanglement from a lecture.
Right. They said they couldn't wrap their head around that concept, which just means I can't understand it. It's too complicated, hard to grasp mentally.
Yeah, a pretty common sort of informal way to say you're struggling with a complex idea. The source mentioned reading the chapter 3 times and still feeling clueless.
Uh-huh. And the idea of watching explainer videos with animations, because they make weird science topics look kind of cute.
Sometimes that actually helps, and their plan was to ask Sam from the study group.
The quantum genius who apparently explained black holes using pizza once.
Now that I'd like to see, but it shows, even if you can't wrap your head around something at first, there might be another way to get it.
Exactly. Persistence and maybe pizza analogies.
Okay, moving into maybe a more formal setting, like work, touch base. The source had a manager talking about a new marketing campaign.
Yep. The manager says they need to touch base about the project soon.
Which just means connect, right? Catch up, have a quick chat or meeting to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Basically, yeah. Get aligned. And the source had a cool potential origin story, too.
Oh, yeah.
From baseball. You touch the base before you can continue playing.
That makes sense. Like a quick check-in before moving on.
Right. And the source also mentioned that feeling in meetings. Just nodding along, not knowing what people meant.
There.
We all have. It said corporate slang is its own language. Understanding touch base is definitely part of learning that language.
Okay, now for something many of us have experienced, watching a really, really boring movie, the source gave us the perfect word. Snooze fest.
Huh. Yes. The example was someone saying a movie was a total snooze fest.
Right.
They were halfway asleep before the second act even started.
Says it all, really. A snooze fest is just something incredibly dull, so boring you could literally fall asleep.
And the source mentioned the trailer was misleading marketing magic. Showed all the exciting bits in, like, 90 seconds.
Right, but the actual movie, so dry. Their reaction was wanting their evening back, wanting real drama or at least a plot that moves.
A very vivid way to describe extreme boredom.
On the flip side, something that makes you laugh out loud, crack me up. This came up in the context of watching stand-up comedy.
Right. A specific joke, something about airline food from a comedian with wild hair and weird voice.
And the reaction was, that joke really cracked me up.
Meaning it made them laugh really hard. Couldn't stop laughing.
And the source had that little exchange about someone still learning American slang, finding things confusing.
And the advice was just keep talking to me and watching dumb shows.
Which is honestly pretty good advice for picking up idioms. Immersion helps.
It really does. And sometimes you need advice for handling, life's little frustrations.
Which brings us to don't sweat the small stuff.
Yes. The scenario was someone going to a concert, but they left the printed ticket at home. They had the QR code, but were still stressing because they planned everything so carefully.
Right. And the advice. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry about minor problems.
Especially, like the source pointed out, when you're already at the concert, the band's about to play. The vibe is amazing.
Exactly. Being told sometimes it's okay to just roll with it. That's key. The source contrasted the super planner with the person who shows up 5 minutes before and just makes it work.
Different styles.
Yeah.
But the point is, don't let minor hiccups ruin the big picture. And I like the bit about you're allowed to mess up, nobody's keeping score.
Yeah, connects it nicely to just being kinder to yourself, too.
Okay, let's talk money again, or value at least. A good deal. The example was a cool jacket that looked expensive, like maybe $100, $150.
But nope, the person said they got a good deal on this jacket, only paid $50. So a good deal is just getting something for a favorable price, less than you expected or less than its usual value.
Right. And the source added they bargained with the seller, which is often how you get those good deals, right?
Definitely, in some places. Now, the opposite feeling, being out of pocket, the source describes someone looking kind of sad after Black Friday shopping.
They were totally out of pocket after spending all of my money on Black Friday.
Meaning, no money left, spent it all.
Yeah. And the consequence mentioned was pretty extreme, having to stop eating for a while to save money.
Ouch. Hopefully an exaggeration, but it makes the point. And the advice to control your shopping addiction, it definitely highlights the downside of overspending.
For sure.
All right, let's shift to some phrases that are maybe less idiomatic in the classic sense, but super common for navigating processes and situations. Like, what's the next step?
This came up with someone wanting to join a school cooking club. They finished the application, then asked, what's the next step?
Just a straightforward question about what happens next in a process.
Exactly. The source mentioned checking email for an interview date, the kinds of questions, interests, experience, blah, blah, blah. It's just fundamental for figuring out any multi-stage thing.
And another one like that. That's a lot of money. Used when someone was looking at university costs.
Yeah, a natural reaction to seeing a big number. The source mentioned potentially $2,000 a month just for living expenses on top of tuition.
Right. It just clearly signals that the speaker thinks the amount is high.
And it sets up the rest of that conversation in the source needing a part-time job, avoiding loans, looking for scholarships. It expresses the financial concern.
Sometimes life throws stuff at you and you think about bigger changes. The source used the phrase, make a big life change. This was suggested to someone feeling really stressed and hopeless about their job.
Right. Making a big life change means a significant shift. Like the example given, wanting to quit my current job because of the stress and lack of motivation, then maybe take a vacation.
It's just a direct way to talk about those major decisions, changing careers, moving house, that kind of thing.
And if you're putting off one of those big changes, someone might hit you with, it's now or never. We saw this with Tom, unemployed for 2 months, always saying I'll do it tomorrow about job searching.
Yeah, the speaker pushes back. You must do it today. It's now or never.
Meaning you have to act immediately. This opportunity might not come again. It stresses the urgency.
And the source adding that Tom got distracted by a really interesting cat video.
So relatable.
Totally. Scrolling social media instead of job hunting, it perfectly captures why someone might need that now or never push.
Back to work for a second. Buried in work. Someone used this to turn down a lunch invitation.
Yeah, if you're buried in work, you're just overwhelmed, too many tasks, snowed under.
Metaphorically buried, yeah. And often connected to that is the feeling, I've got to do it now.
Right. The source linked this to needing to finish something before eating because I will be scolded by the manager otherwise.
So it implies immediate obligation, usually because of external pressure, right? Like a deadline or the boss.
Makes sense. Now here's a phrase describing feeling totally stuck. Literally don't have an option. The source used this for someone struggling to pick a college major.
Mm-hmm. They felt they didn't have a neck for anything, grades were terrible, no talent in arts or sports.
So they felt they literally don't have an option to choose any field. It's that feeling of being completely cornered, no choices available because of your own perceived limits.
But the source immediately pushed back on that, pointed out a talent for drawing, suggested studying arts, even if the parents weren't keen.
Right. The advice was convince them again. It showed that sometimes that feeling of having no option isn't actually the reality. Maybe you just need to find the right path.
Good point. Finding the right skills for the right majors.
Okay, thinking about parties again. The source showed two different views using the phrase, didn't really think about it. One person thought the party was fantastic. Food, music, everything.
But the other person, not really.
And when asked why they weren't enjoying it, even with pretty girls surrounding them, they just said, I didn't really think about it.
So in that context, it means they weren't really engaged, right?
Yeah.
Not paying attention to what was going on around them. Probably more focused inward.
Yeah, their follow-up comment about never finding true love at any party sort of confirms that detached, maybe a bit cynical perspective.
That inward focus can sometimes come from stress. The phrase under stress describes that feeling. The source had someone working overtime for a week. Tasks felt endless. They felt under stress.
Yeah, experiencing that mental or emotional pressure from difficult circumstances. The source even mentioned a physical side effect, a backache.
Right. And suggested yoga, saying it helps both mentally and physically, even with back pain relief. It connects the feeling of stress to real-world impacts and potential coping methods.
Let's switch to a positive social skill, being good at networking. The source used Sarah as an example, the most popular girl in school and town.
Right. She's really good at networking, which means she knows how to make friends with everyone, how to build connections easily.
And the result? A lot of people like her and will immediately give her a hand when she's in need. It shows the practical benefit of having that wide social circle.
Yeah, the source contrasted her with being an introvert who never knows how to start a conversation, highlighting why networking is seen as such a useful skill.
If you're making a big move, literally, you might need to hire a realtor. The source brought this up when someone needed to move house urgently. Their neighborhood was in decline, crime was up, it was far from work.
So the suggestion was hire a realtor, which just means employ a real estate agent to help you buy or sell a property.
Simple enough. The source added the detail about needing a trustworthy one and finding a website to connect with agents, just practical steps in that process.
We also saw some phrases about skills and learning. Like someone was told their cooking skill is perfect, but they still wanted to learn more new recipes in a class.
Right, not really an idiom, but a common scenario, getting praised for something but still wanting to improve.
Yeah. And the alternative suggestion was watching cooking channels on TV and the internet with the friend offering to be the taste tester.
The supportive friend who's too busy to join the class but promises to try everything you cook for me. It shows how we talk about hobbies and encourage each other.
Workplace news often has its own phrases too, like got a new job and talking about a dynamic working environment. This was used for congratulating someone named Henry.
Got a new job, pretty straightforward, started new employment. And the description of the place as dynamic, where everyone's excited to work every day, paints a positive picture. Nice manager, too.
Yeah, these are standard phrases in career talk. And Henry hoping to learn and grow with this job. Also very typical professional aspiration language.
When you hit a wall, especially with something like schoolwork, you might need to ask for help. This came up with a tricky math equation. Someone said, I have no clue how to solve this equation.
No clue. Another useful one, meaning I have no idea.
Right. And the solution was ask our teacher for help. Or ask Jason, the smartest person in our class.
And a little interaction with Jason was good, asking politely, showing your work, and Jason gently reminding them about politeness before helping. Shows the social side of asking for help.
Now, an idiom that seems weather-related but often isn't. Rain or shine. The source had a science project canceled because it's raining outside.
Mm-hmm. And the mother questions it, saying, rain or shine, it doesn't necessarily affect school projects, does it? She's using the idiom in its usual sense, regardless of the weather.
The catch was the project was all about the sun, tracking its position, measuring shadows, so it actually needed sunshine.
Exactly. So while rain or shine usually means despite the weather, here the context flipped it. A great reminder to always consider the situation.
Let's talk books for a moment. The source mentioned the biggest bookstore in town and books being out of print. Someone expected a huge bookstore to have everything.
Yeah, biggest bookstore implies a massive selection. But the reality check was that some books might be a bit out of print.
Meaning they're not being published anymore, so they can be hard to find, even in a big store.
Right. And the context was buying a gift for a bookworm sister, suggesting the library, or maybe a different gift like a reading lamp. Just practical book-related vocabulary.
Okay, finally, a cluster of phrases describing a difficult situation going public. We had things aren't always easy, something that went over well, or rather didn't, and gossip that spread like wildfire.
Spread like wildfire. Great idiom. Means news travels incredibly fast.
And the situation was messy.
Yeah.
Trouble with a client who kept changing her mind about a proposal 6 times, mostly because of cost out of her budget.
But then when the plan was simplified to meet the budget, she didn't like it because it was too plain.
Yeah. Things aren't always easy. Sums up that kind of frustrating interaction. And when the speaker finally told the client, she can't have it all, well, that didn't go over well.
Meaning it was received badly, led to a lecture from the boss, and then presumably the news of the whole thing spread like wildfire through the office.
It really captures that whole difficult sequence using these specific phrases.
The source also had some simpler factual statements used conversationally, like lived in Shanghai for a long time. Someone mentioned this when their friend Maya was moving there.
Right, just stating a fact about their past. But it immediately led to the suggestion, definitely give Maya some tips. Shows how sharing experience happens naturally in conversation.
And expressing feelings. We saw, miss my best friend, Ava skipped dinner because she was upset.
Yeah, the reason was, I miss my best friend, Olivia, who'd moved to the UK. They hadn't talked in a week. Ava felt forgotten.
It really conveyed that deep feeling, didn't it? The reassurance that Olivia was probably just busy settling in.
Mm-hmm. And the detail that they always talked every day before. And the comparison, Ava, wasn't even this bad when you broke up with your ex. That really shows how important the friendship was. The offer to save dinner was a nice touch, too.
Yeah, shows care. Lastly, we had saving for. Ben looking longingly at cakes in a bakery, but saying, I can't really afford it right now.
Why? Because he was saving for a gaming console.
So saving for just means putting money aside over time to buy a specific thing, a very common personal finance goal.
And the image of him staring longingly and his sister offering to buy the cakes because she wanted them adds that relatable human element.
Definitely. So yeah, this source material gave us a really great range of examples showing these phrases in action.
Absolutely. From deep stuff like support and missing friends to everyday things like work, money, understanding boredom, these idioms and phrases cover it all.
And seeing them in context, like the source provided, is so key. It's not just knowing the definition, it's understanding when and how to use them, right?
Exactly. It's that shortcut to following conversations and sounding more natural yourself. The source mentioned practice listening, speaking, watching. That's really how you internalize this stuff.
Yeah, English is full of these quirks, these silly things, as the source put it, but they add so much color and efficiency.
They really do. We've dived into, almost 30 different expressions here. From having someone's back to saving dough, spilling tea, not sweating the small stuff.
It's clear that understanding these is pretty crucial for feeling comfortable and connected in English conversations.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why do we develop these specific little shorthand phrases for these particular human experiences? Support, gossip, confusion, money, work stress.
That's a fascinating question. Why these metaphors, these specific idioms, stick for these concepts? Something to definitely keep thinking about as you hear more of them out in the wild.